Meet PitchDB, the ultimate platform for speakers looking to make their mark on podcasts, conferences, and media outlets. PitchDB provides access to over 3 million platforms, ensuring you find the perfect avenue for your message. With AI integrations, your bios and pitches are tailored uniquely to each opportunity, giving you the edge you need. Join now at pitchdb.com.
Welcome to Your Brand Amplified, the podcast where we interview marketers, publicists, and brands to learn their stories, what makes them tick, and tips and tricks that make a difference. I am so excited to finally make this happen. I have Kathryn Smith, MBA, on the show. Kathryn, thank you so much for being on Your Brand Amplified.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
You have done a lot of things. I know that you worked at Home Depot in your career, but now you have your own business as a marketing consultant. You are also co-founder at the Black Lady Business School and Georgia Tech's 40 Under 40. So congratulations, first of all.
Thank you so much.
And Leadership Comp. I did Leadership Houston and Leadership Southern California. So I was like, okay, I have to give her a shout out for that.
Nice.
But I'd love to hear how you decided to go from corporate working for somebody else, talent acquisition, into having your own company to help people be better at marketing and entrepreneurship.
Sure. So I actually never planned to be an entrepreneur. Most of the time and energy and effort I spent on my career was actually devoted to forwarding or advancing my career in corporate America. And prior to my last corporate job at the Home Depot, I kind of did the Fortune 500 tour of Atlanta. So I worked at a few Fortune 500 companies, but I had not planned to be an entrepreneur. Some health issues made it so that I could not work in corporate America. And I took what I thought would be a temporary break in 2019 from corporate America and founded Walton Birch as just a way to make money during that break, not knowing that COVID was on the horizon. So it was unexpected for sure. And I think I potentially would have, lost a little bit of time not planning to be an entrepreneur, but I definitely don't regret the decision and wouldn't change it if I had the opportunity. So
how fortuitous that you, not that you had health issues, right? But that you decided to, well, let me just start this company so I have some money coming in. I can still keep my fingers on the pulse of everything. And then all of a sudden, boom, the whole world shuts down. You're already set up for business. Unlike most companies, I think the statistic is like we moved to digital 7 years faster than small businesses were supposed to. And that has meant for a lot of them going out of business or just not getting the same business because they didn't already have things set up. Is that part of what you started helping people with when the pandemic hit?
Yeah, exactly. So I actually founded Walton Birch as a marketing research company. My last job in corporate America was in talent acquisition marketing. So I was doing talent acquisition marketing research. And so even I had to pivot during COVID, but I fell back on web development, which is a skill that I picked like early on in my career back when I started with AT&T with the Yellow Pages, when the Yellow Pages was still with AT&T. So yeah, when the pandemic hit, I also had trouble getting in front of prospects and getting referrals and clients and just even having meetings. And so I fell back on web development, and it just so happened that the early pandemic, a lot of brick and mortar businesses needed to establish an online presence for either buy online, pick up in store, or fully selling online. And a lot of the people who had been furloughed or laid off during the pandemic started businesses. So it just kind of worked out that I ended up in that particular industry at that time, even having to pivot my business during early COVID. But that digital revolution absolutely was, what drove my decision to go back into web development, but also it drove growth for Walton Birch for several years, for the first 2 where the pandemic was really bad. But even after that, this will be my 5th year in business and we're still in web development. So
amazing. Congratulations on that. That
Thank
is
you so much.
A feat unto itself, right?
It is.
And when web development, do you work specifically with WordPress or Squarespace or Wix? Or do you kind of work across all the ecosystems?
All of the ecosystems. Wow. So Walton Birch is focused on helping small businesses and entrepreneurs show up credibly and professionally online through their online presence. And so sometimes clients and customers bring their websites to us and say, hey, this site isn't really working for me. It needs to be optimized. It needs to be improved. It needs to be repaired. And so we work with what they have. And then we also have new clients bringing new sites. And it really depends on the needs of the client. So not everybody wants to own or manage or maintain a WordPress website. And so there are lots of other platforms out there that make it really easy as a solopreneur or as someone who's new in business to kind of get started. And so whatever platform works for our clients or whatever platform they're working with is what we work with.
Well, that in itself, again, is amazing because I've talked to other people who are like, nope, we only specialize in this kind of site or this kind of site. And so that's great because then somebody will know right away if they're an ideal client for them or not. But it also can limit the options and people don't always know where to go.
That's a good point. So I think specialization is absolutely important in a field like ours where there are a ton of people offering services. But I think the point that differentiates us is that we are focused on entrepreneurs and small businesses. And so in that segment, there are a few standouts as far as platforms go, but I've literally seen all of them.
And what are some things that you see that you do differently and are able to offer people? Because web design, you see a lot of like overseas, companies and just lots of different ways to get any kind of digital. And it can be very overwhelming to figure out who do you find that's the right fit for you as a business and that you're also the right fit for them as a client.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the clients that come to us, they have an idea. They know that they need marketing, but they're not sure what all they need. So they might say, I need a website, and they also don't have a branding, and they don't have a logo, and they don't have any copy for their website, and they don't have, a platform to put it on. And so when I started working with clients, they'd say, hey, I need a website. And I would say, hey, you also need a logo. You also need X, Y, and Z. And so one of the things I think that differentiates us from some of the people, the independent kind of contractors operating out there on like maybe a Fiverr, Upwork, or those types of platforms, is that if we don't provide the service, we don't provide all marketing services, but we do provide a lot of services associated with websites. But if we don't provide a service, we can say, hey, I think you need to talk to a brand strategist. You need to, get a logo. You need to get some brand guidelines and, some colors and fonts and typography and things like that in order for us to move forward with your website project. So to get that look and feel that you're looking for, to understand where we're headed in this direction, we think you need to talk to this person, then we will facilitate that connection. It's not just saying, okay, go talk to a brand strategist, then come back to us. And then we'll deal with you. It really is the full package. So, when people are coming to us to build websites for them, they are getting a full baked website, and not just a website as a deliverable. They're getting a marketing channel, a marketing vehicle to support the growth of their website. And I think that, people really get that. They're like, oh yes, that's what I needed. I think that's what differentiates us. Yeah.
It's so funny because I decided to niche down just to PR. And I would have the same thing. People come to me and they'd say, I'm ready for PR. I'm like, wait a minute. Well, do you have social media? Do you have a brand? Do you know what your message is? Do you have a logo? Like the same things, but from a different side. So I love that we both.
Yeah, it's a lot to think about. But, a lot of people will absolutely deliver their one slice of the pie and leave you needing something else. So when you don't get the results, they'll say, oh, you're a terrible, PR person. It's like, no, I'm not a terrible PR person. I'm an excellent PR person. I'm not a brand strategist.
Right.
So I think providing that service and providing the education, honestly, around, what PR is and what PR isn't, and how somebody that is like niched and specific can help them where they are is super helpful.
Yeah. Well, to your point, I'm also a huge believer because I also do brand. I also do I teach digital strategy, but I feel like everything has to be really integrated, and people sometimes forget that. And so you have to have the great website that somebody's going to go to if they get an article or if they, word of mouth. If they don't have the website that's dialed in and that's telling them exactly who this is for and what the offer is, how you're going to solve their problem, right? How they can reach you, all of that stuff. And they don't see the same thing on social media, then they're going to lose trust immediately with a potential consumer.
It's a whole package.
Yeah. So what is that process when you start working with somebody? Has it been primarily businesses in the Atlanta area? Has it been nationwide, global?
So when I started, I started as Kathryn Smith, operating as Walton Birch, I wanted to help people in my city. You know, I knew a lot of small businesses and I had access to a lot of small businesses, and that's kind of how networking goes. And so I started here in Atlanta, but very quickly word spread. Like word of mouth is the best thing for small businesses. So very, very quickly, I had businesses across the country. So I worked one time, I believe, with a company outside the U.S., and that was still in Canada. But so we are overwhelmingly a U.S.-based company. But aside from that, we work everywhere within the U.S.
Fantastic. And what do you think is something that you've seen when people bring you a website they've already done that you're immediately like, ooh, I need to fix this?
That's a good question. I could really talk about that all day.
Yeah, I'm sure.
There are a few things. So I think when people put together websites, whether they do them themselves, like a DIY, or they hire like someone who only does web development to build a website, when it looks like a website, they think it's done. They're like, all right, we've got a homepage, there's some pictures, there's some buttons, shows up on mobile, it's great, you know. And then the reason why they will reach out to me is that something is not happening. So they'll say, nobody is coming to my website. We're not making any sales. Something is broken. Something is missing here. So overwhelmingly, the biggest problem that we see is that the website is underperforming or not performing at all. No one knows it exists. No one is visiting the website. It is not doing what it is intended to do or what the business owner intended for it to do when they purchased a website. So that's the number one thing. Like, hey, my website's not doing anything. No one's visiting it. I'm not getting any sales. And so there are usually a few reasons why a website might not be getting sales or traffic. And I don't know if I have the time to go into all of those, but yeah, that's the thing. It's that they've set it up without putting in place the, I guess, funnels, for lack of a better word, to draw people to the website, to give them something to do, like to ask them to take an action on the website, and then to make it very, very easy to take that action.
Yeah. Simplicity. Because I think we get caught up sometimes in making sure that we have bells and whistles and that it's really vibrant, but sometimes that slows down people's load time, for instance, and then they're not going to stick around to go on your website and like see what you want to see.
Or no buttons. Like I saw a website recently where someone said, hey, you know, no one is booking our services. And I clicked and I said, okay, so where's the button to request your services? And they're like, well, if you go to the contact us page and then scroll down beneath that. So it's like, I'm like, no. The request should be on every single page of the website. On every page, it should say, hey, we would love for you to do this, and then give you a path for doing that. So sometimes like what we do is not rocket science. I think it is. It relies on a lot of experience and a lot of knowledge, and then just the ability to execute. So,
yeah. So you've been growing your company, and I'd love to know, Walton Birch, where the name came from.
Oh, yeah. So what happened was, I tell people this might be my greatest marketing decision so far. So as I mentioned, when I started Walton Birch, the plan was for it to be a marketing research company. And so I wanted people to hear the name and think of Deloitte and Forrester and McKinsey, like those types of names, right? So I did a couple of Mad Libs and then came up with a few names and ran them by my friends and family. And I ran the name Walton Birch by my brother. And he said, Walton Birch, that sounds like a white guy. And I was like, that's the one. That is the one. And I mean, it checked all of the boxes. Sounded like Deloitte, Forrester, McKinsey. Sounded like it could be a prestigious marketing research firm. You know, was easy to say, and the domain wasn't taken. So all of the boxes were checked. And so I ran with it. And even when we pivoted back into web development, it kind of worked. It like gave us instant credibility. And for the first 2 years, people would call up and say, hey, can I speak to Walton Birch? So it worked. It totally worked.
Did it work in every case? Because I also, you know, like thinking if somebody's expecting to talk to an older white man, which is that name sounds like, then did you ever have to deal with an uncomfortable situation where you're like, I am Walton Birch?
So I have been in a lot of uncomfortable situations. Even my name does not adequately describe what the expectation that people get when they hear it. So I'm kind of used to that. I'm used to people just being like,
making assumptions.
You know, when they see me attached to this name or me attached to Walton Birch. And honestly, not every prospect or not every person that you talk to is going to end up being a client. So I'm always courteous, always open-minded about the conversations, but I never ever take for granted that someone that, comes in as a prospect is going to become a client. So it doesn't hurt my feelings if, that's the only reason you don't want to work with us. Really, you've probably saved us a little bit of trouble. And honestly, we can help. So if you can't get past that, then it sounds like a you problem.
Yes, 100%. I mean, I love that you're being completely real with me because I think it's something that we need in this world, right? Okay, so talk about Black Lady Business School, because it sounds like it goes beyond websites and web design.
It does, and I had the opposite naming strategy.
Yes.
Name that one too. So I'm on a networking platform called Lunch Club where you have virtual meetings with people. And so in maybe 2020 or 2021, I met another marketing consultant or social media consultant based here in Atlanta. And we were talking about how marketing doesn't solve all problems that our clients were having. Like our clients were having supply chain issues. Our clients were having, just all kinds of problems. And marketing couldn't necessarily solve all of them. And so more immediately in terms of not being able to get supplies or packaging or things like that for their business, we said, I think economies of scale would help with access to those things, specifically for women and minorities in business. And so the idea behind Black Lady Business School was initially to come together and create and leverage economies of scale so that Black lady businesses could be prioritized next to the Amazons and the Walmarts when it came to packaging and products and supplies and things like that. But it has evolved into more providing what we call the business school experience and the access without the time commitment, without the cost. And so it's education and networking and programming and resources to support really anybody that's trying to grow in business. It's just still called the Black Lady Business School because we were the two Black ladies behind it. And we were trying to replicate that business school experience.
Yeah. That is such a good point, though, because there's unlimited information on the internet, but it's not necessarily the right information that's actually going to work for you. A lot of times there's all these courses that are fancy and expensive, and it's really hard to complete them if you're on your own and trying to navigate this world. So having a group, I think, is so important. Having people that have been through and understand and have those degrees and have been through it all and can help advise you, and having just that network, right?
Yeah, it's a network of accountability. Yeah, I think the accountability is the important part, to have someone to check in on you and say hey, are we still working on that? Do you have any roadblocks? Is there something I can do to help you or someone I can introduce you to get you over those roadblocks? That has been incredibly important for me as I've grown in my career as an entrepreneur and as I've grown Walton Birch. And so we're just trying to pay it forward.
Yeah. And what does that look like? Do you have in-person meetings? Is it a virtual community that you're able to bring people in from all over? So it's not just Atlanta.
Right now it is just Atlanta. And I think that's because so many people start something and they want it to be nationwide. And when it gets to be nationwide, the accountability part is a lot more difficult to kind of keep up with. So we're very much local to Atlanta. I think at some point, if we can, get a program down and set and structured, we may be able to franchise out to other cities. But right now we're extremely local because the people who've been there, done that, the people who have the businesses and are starting the businesses and need help with the businesses are here in Atlanta. So very much local for now. Most of what we do is in person. I've been so busy lately, we haven't had an event, but there's something coming. I don't want to say too much, but I'm very excited about it. It's going to be more of a social networking event than it will be attached to business, but you do need some downtime and time to just kind of be around like minds and friendly faces from time to time. So that's what we're working on currently.
How do you manage that? Because I've started embracing the joy of missing out and saying no to things, but I also miss having those opportunities I can't go to that networking event because I have to pick up my daughter at this time, or I have to do this or whatever. So how, as a business owner and somebody who has Black Lady Business School and you're in Leadership Club, how do you manage your time?
I remember this thing called sleep. And it was great.
Yeah.
What's that? No, to your point, it is absolutely about prioritizing what is important and saying no to some things. So just like when I was in business school, when I went to business school, I did an evening program. So I was working from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. and then in school from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. And none of my friends and family really saw me for 3 years for that reason. So I'm used to it. But like, for me, that means being very intentional about seeing friends and seeing family when I do have time. And then like just kind of explaining to them like, hey, can't do that right now. You know, for other organizations, if there's a way that I can support, if there's a way that I can connect you with someone else who can kind of help you through this, I would love to do that. Other than that, I'll see you in like 2 months after graduation. So...
Yeah, I teach grad school. I'm also going to grad school. So I very much relate to what you just said.
Yeah. The no time, no sleep, sleep. What is that?
And the no time. And then the other thing I find is that a lot of my grad students do have that imposter syndrome. It's USC, Annenberg, right? So it's a top communication program in the country. And that it might have been an aspirational school. And they're like, I can't believe I made it in. And I have to say, you made it here because you're supposed to be in this room.
Yeah.
Because you're going to create change.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that just having community around you, particularly people who look like you, who have lived experiences, maybe not the exact same lived experience, but you can relate, is so important. And that's like, my students are from 20 something to 60 something, all different things going on in their lives. Right. But the fact that we can all come together and all share whatever experience we have, I think it's really helped open all of them up to hearing, but like listening to other people and understanding why we need to be so intentional about what we do, how we put ourselves forward and how we put our businesses forward.
Absolutely. The imposter syndrome is the worst. But there is a point where, to your point, being surrounded by people who are supportive help you to feel like you belong. Because I think the root of imposter syndrome is not feeling worthy or not feeling like you belong in the room with the people that you're with. And so, you know, for those people to be supportive and to otherwise be surrounded by supportive people is tremendously important. And then the intention. So the intention looks like mindfulness. So sometimes when you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm in the room with this person. You have to think, okay, I'm here in this moment right now. I'm not going to think about what I did yesterday. I'm not going to think about what I need to do 10 minutes from now. I'm going to be here now. And even if I don't feel like I deserve to be in this room, I'm going to take everything that I can from this moment and be present in this moment with intention, you know, and then I think that really helps when you're in imposter syndrome, because then you can literally, I want to say literally lean in. It feels cliche, but you can be at the table. You can pull yourself up to the table and be at the table and be in those conversations with those people that you're just like in awe that you're in the same room with.
When you work with people, are you working, because I know that on your website you have a Shopify consulting practice as well as the other website. So, because Shopify obviously is its own little beast.
Yeah, so we're working on our website. So give me like a month. What happened is Walton Birch grew so fast. There was a point where it was Kathryn Smith operating as Walton Birch. And now it is a team of people. It's everybody but Kathryn Smith operating. I'm a salesperson. I'm like business development at Walton Birch at this point. But yeah, like it just happened that it was just me. And then all of a sudden it wasn't just me. So we're still working on updating our website. But basically, we are still focused on entrepreneurs and small businesses. But the challenge with a lot of entrepreneurs and small businesses, especially when they're new to business, is that like they don't necessarily have the budget to basically support my full team. And so we have had to look for other partnerships and projects to kind of subsidize that work, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in addition to working with entrepreneurs and small businesses, we also do white label website development for marketing agencies and other creatives. So like SEOs, PR people, you know, brand strategists and designers who don't have in-house web development teams to develop their websites. So they might include a website in a product that they sell to their clients, and we would just fulfill the website part of that under their umbrella. So we call that white label website services. And also, we have expanded to local contracts or local government contracts. So that is new and exciting.
Yes,
that's something that we're working on this year.
So yeah, for that process, because I know that can be very onerous. I actually interviewed somebody who was an ex-Air Force guy, and he helps businesses understand and go through the process of government contracting.
I need to meet that guy.
Yes, I will make a note to myself to intro you. And so, yeah, that's a whole other beast. And that with that, I'm like, do I need to get certified as a minority-owned business, as a woman-owned business? Do you have the various certifications? And what was that process like?
So I am not certified yet. I didn't realize how important it was until I became more involved in economic development in my county. And so through those connections, I've actually learned about where they're headed from a purchasing and procurement perspective. And they're leveraging technology to identify businesses, to do like small businesses, local businesses to do business with the county and the different organizations within the county. And the platforms that they're leveraging have the ability to search databases of certified businesses. So I'm like, oh, okay.
Got it.
That's certification ASAP.
Yes. Yes.
So for supplier diversity initiatives, for local government procurement, for municipal government procurement, I think it will become, if it isn't already, very important to have any type of certification. And it will be, I think in the past, it hasn't been really clear on how you can get value from those certifications. But technology is stepping in to make those certifications more visible, which can help small businesses like mine with access to procurement opportunities. So I'm super excited about it. Let me take off my economic development hat for a second.
Well, what is something when you moved into entrepreneurship and then all of a sudden your company blew up and it became, what it is today? What was one thing that you wish that you could go back and tell yourself when you first started?
Maybe not when I first, I guess when I first started. So there were 2 points. So when I first started and then 6 months into business, like when COVID hit, and then 2 years into business, because 2 years into business is when the change happened that allowed me to pivot from a solopreneurship to having a team. But I literally thought that change, that transition would kill me and my business. So this is something I would have told myself at that point. And at the COVID point and at the very beginning point is that it will get better. And I want to expand on that. Let me think about it. I tried to be succinct, but I guess that tension, that feeling like I'm about to die is a sign that something is about to change.
I know. Yeah.
And then also like when you can't see that change, you have to prepare for that change. So when the change is, I don't know how I can do all of this by myself, that's when you need to think about and prepare for having a team. And so I sometimes still feel like I'm building this ship as I'm sailing on it.
Yeah.
But having gone through that, I think the building the ship while you're sailing it part has become a little bit easier. So for government contracting or local government contracting, I'm like, I'm not really sure how to do that, but like, I know that I will need X, Y, and Z in preparation for that. So I now have someone whose whole job revolves around government contracting, and I don't have any government contracts. So then it's just because I knew that it happened so quickly. Going from a solopreneur to a team happened over the span of about 8 weeks. And so I know that it can change very, very quickly. And so I would tell myself, like, prepare for that change before it happens. That makes sense.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I love the fact that you talked about like those moments when you're like, something gets really tough, you have to push through. Because like you said, that just means something as big is about to change and shift. And it's preparing you for that.
Yeah. And sometimes it happens very quickly. I used to joke that my ROS or my return on struggle was 2 years. And it's not. It is not. It was 2 years, but it's right around 6 months at this point. Like it is, change is happening very quickly. I think technology has enabled some of that. And some of that is just being a business owner for a while and understanding, how to overcome some of the hurdles of change. But yeah, like just know that there is an ROS, a return on struggle. There'll be a time where you're just like, this is so hard. This is so hard. This is so hard. This is so hard. And you'll just be like, oh, this is like, this is so bad. Maybe we can keep going. So
I've never heard return on struggle, but I'm going to use that now.
It makes so much sense. It just, in retrospect, it makes so much sense. If you're just like, okay, we're in the period leading up to, this is part of my return on struggle. So it helps to kind of contextualize some of the feelings that you're experiencing and just to say, okay, I feel a lot of tension, but maybe there's a breakthrough coming too. So
fantastic. What about AI? Are you using it a lot in your businesses? Are you seeing it help with websites? Are you seeing more people use it the wrong way or think that, oh, I can just design something with AI and it's going to be perfect. And then you have to go back and redo all the work.
Yes. Wait, D, all of the above. So I worked at, I call it like the bleeding edge for a while. I used to work for AT&T, and AT&T is a very bleeding edge company. Like everything that AT&T does is like bleeding edge. And so I've seen kind of how the general public reacts to innovation. Like the first thing is like, oh no, it's going to take our job. Like that is literally every time their reaction. It's going to take our jobs. It's going to take over this, or it's going to be great and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. Like they've either overblown the claims positively or overblown the claims negatively. And what usually ends up happening, in my experience, is that it's not as catastrophic or as amazing as they think it will be. And also just like the average everyday use of it will be something completely different. Right. That will open up doors for people who would otherwise not have access to certain things. And in entrepreneurship, that is very much true, because in entrepreneurship, like something like AI has the potential to make a solopreneur as productive or effective as a whole team of people. So I think that when it comes to AI, we're still in that learning curve. So people are saying AI has the ability to replace jobs, but like the way that they're replacing jobs, it's not quite working because AI doesn't have common sense, and you still kind of need people because people have common sense, right?
Exactly.
So AI may replace some jobs. All technology ends up replacing some jobs. But I think, AI is not going to replace every single job, and new jobs will be created because of AI. Like when I worked for AT&T, one of my jobs was social media intranet manager. Like that job didn't exist when I graduated from high school. Right. So like the platform that even it made that job possible probably put somebody else out of a job, but it gave me a full-time salary position with benefits. And so just having seen that firsthand, I'm like, all right, well, I know that they're massively overblowing what AI can do or the destruction that AI can cause, and that we're going to settle into a groove of things where AI makes sense, and it will eliminate some jobs and it will create other jobs, and then it will level the playing field in entirely unexpected ways for people like me. So nice. Pro tip for people that are looking to either get jobs in or leverage AI in their businesses, like understand what it can do, like what it is supposed to do and what it can do, and then connect the dots for people. Like I've gotten several jobs when I was in corporate America, connecting dots between the business and new technology, i.e. so in social media intranet manager. And so that way you're also not afraid. You're like, okay, well, this isn't that scary. I kind of know what it does. I know what to expect from it. And also if you're at that quote unquote bleeding edge of opportunity, that gives you opportunities to move into new career fields, move into new companies, move into new industries, expand your business if that's something, if you're an entrepreneur. So don't be afraid of it. Embrace it. Figure out what it is. Figure out how you can leverage it to help yourself, but also to help others, because I think that's where the jobs and the clients will be.
Yeah. Nice. I love that. And I think that's a very positive outlook. And also very true, because people get really scared of the unknown, but every time there's something new, the internet, right? Cell phones. We did not have things like this when I was growing up.
Yeah. We did that.
Yeah. And one other thing I've heard is that in the future, we might not even be going to websites. We'll be going, it'll all be app-based. We see things like Klarna and other apps, or even like Shopify, right? Where it's an aggregator of you can buy all kinds of stuff. Do you see the trend going more towards that? Do you think that just at least mobile first websites will still be something that are a huge necessity?
That's a good question. I think mobile first is going to be the trend of the future, just because people are on the go and in-home internet isn't as accessible as it has been. But that said, I don't know if it's a saying or if it's just general wisdom that the longer something has been around, the more likely it is to probably be around a while. And I think that's especially true from a business perspective, but also from a technology perspective. So the internet has changed a lot, but the internet is still there. Websites still exist. What they're used for might change, but I still think the web will exist. I don't think that Google as a search engine will be an app. I still think you'll open your browser and go to Google and do search. There are some drawbacks from a technology perspective of apps. And I think as people are kind of more concerned about their privacy. I think that the drawback of apps will be like the amount of access that they have to people, because apps allow a lot of access to people. And sometimes it's very difficult to turn that off. So, and we've already seen a couple of apps, shopping apps in particular, take advantage of people's information. So long story short, I don't think the internet's going anywhere. I think if these apps don't get their acts right, people will use it in favor of apps just because they can control their privacy a little better there.
Yeah, fantastic. I appreciate that. Kathryn, is there anything that you really want to make sure that people understand if they're thinking about web design and they're thinking about how they're launching their business?
I want to be a voice that provides hope and encouragement. So yes, Walton Birch is a company that makes and builds websites for companies. And so we can absolutely do that. But I would say to people who are considering a website for their business or a website change for their business to go for it. You could absolutely do that. So find out what you're missing currently. Do a couple internet searches, educate yourself, because if you don't know what it is, then you can't speak intelligently about it to somebody like me. You're kind of relying on me to, kind of be a good and decent person, which I think I'm a good and decent person. Not everybody out there is like me. So educate yourself a little bit on what it is and, what you need. And then ask questions, ask tons and tons and tons and tons of questions, even if they seem like crazy questions. And if the person you're talking to is not very nice to you, maybe that's not the right person to. Yeah. But yeah, so I absolutely think websites are still relevant, still useful for businesses of all types, but they don't have to be complicated. They don't have to be huge. They don't have to be extra fancy. They don't have to be expensive. And so if a one-page landing page is what you put up while you're, working up the budget to build a full website, do that. So start somewhere. That's the summary. Start somewhere. Start somewhere.
Awesome. And obviously, people are going to go to waltonbirch.com.
In a month. Give me a month.
I'm going to note that. And they can schedule a discovery call, or they can also find different marketing resources there. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, some words of wisdom that help you get through every day in your business and life?
Oh, yeah. So my favorite quote of all time, which is actually tattooed on my arm here, is a quote by Audre Lorde. And it says that when I dare to be powerful, to use my strength in the service of my vision, then it becomes less and less important whether I am afraid. And I think that's it. That's the quote. You do it and you do it scared is essentially a summary of that. But that's what drives me, because there are so many times, there's so much uncertainty in entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. And so many times where you're just I don't know if this massive gamble that I've made will turn out to be worth it. I don't know if this is going to work out. And you have to go forward. So
awesome. Those are amazing words. Thank you, Kathryn, so much for being on the show. This was a really, really fun conversation. And
thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I just love your energy and your enthusiasm and what you're bringing in to help other people navigate their new projects, their old projects, just this crazy world of entrepreneurship and digital that's always changing. So it's nice to know that we have a friendly face at the other side who's going to help walk us through.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you to everybody who's watching or listening to this episode. And I'll be back again with another amazing guest to share their story very soon. Want more? Check out amplifywithannika.com or follow me on socials at amplifywithannika.